Most of us know our watch brands, and we know what we like. Simply the history of the maker or the name, their accomplishments. But when you buy into a brand, you are buying into a story. And hopefully that story resonates with you. The best brands are the ones that make you feel a part of that story. So here are some thoughts about the good, the bad, the ugly of watch brands. What do you define as a good brand? A culmination of things. For me, it's quite simple. Understanding their customer base, products need to be fairly priced relative to competitors, great variety of creative choice with designs that are recognizable, and the brand needs to be willing to push the boundaries. That's it. But what do we define as a good watch brand today? The purist wants history and heritage, innovations linking to that history, partnerships, as well as a great selection of designs that are recognizable. The fundamental thing is that a great brand needs to make you feel better about yourself, that their product is something that will help you be better, that it will enable you to do something you couldn't before, that you are buying something that brings worth into your life. Simply put, make your customer the hero of the story. How did we see such a big boom, and how was this established 50 plus years ago? It was through advertising. It was through marketing and promotion in such a way that the story interwove into how the watch was used. There's nothing better than experiencing these vintage ads, and for many of us, it's what got us into this hobby many years back. Witnessing these pioneers who wore these watches that gave them so much credit about their functionality, about what they could do, how well they worked, and how they served as such great companions to these wearers. There was something so romantic when we look to advertising of the olden days. And maybe we're looking at it now through rose-tinted glasses because a lot has changed. Of course, advertising back then, it was a highly competitive place, as it is right now. But since so many people were vying for analog watches, back then everyone needed one, so competition was rife. These brands had to outdo one another through bold, sometimes obnoxious claims, telling the consumer why this product was the best, the feats that it accomplished, the risks that it existed on, and the history that it made. If we move to see how watch advertising is done today, it is very different. Of course, it must be mentioned that this is not the same for every brand. Not every watch brand is the same. But in many respects, some of the most popular brands, their advertising is not humble. In many ways, it can be seen as pretentious. But we must also bear in mind that the demand and interest for watches is not as popular as it used to be. The mechanical wristwatch is not being used as a utility anymore, and this is the real issue that advertising is driving in another direction. The way that watches are proposed to us, modern advertising, is creating a different kind of consumer. I believe in a lot of ways the brand being self-absorbed, it's no longer putting the person before the name, the milestones achieved. It's now solely about the name. And because of that, the consumer is not buying the watch to further the story or to appreciate it and its history. They are buying it for the status. They are buying it for the brand, purely to show their neighbor that they have it. I'm generalizing in this situation. This doesn't affect everyone. I think most of us can agree that there has been such a difference with the way that a lot of these brands are portrayed now. Their popularity doesn't stem from the romance, it now stems from the image. And unfortunately, this affects everyone. Not just those who want to flex these watches, but also those who truly want to appreciate them but now can't. This leads us to the next section. When a brand is so self-absorbed, it in a way caters to its own self-inflation. When a manufacturer says that they are going to stop creating a watch and instead decide to focus on a limited batch edition and then another one and then another one, all of which increasing in popularity, creating a small batch of watches for a specific clientele. What this does from the hierarchy, it spreads all the way down and affects the bottom line of every watch in this category. Or in a different way, supporting their own hyperinflation, they refuse to sell a watch to a certain customer. This is the conundrum and the real base of this argument that I wanted to try and get across. Does a brand deserve respect when they reach a threshold? Should a brand be entitled to choose its clientele? And should a brand make these rules? Or in this situation, is the customer always right? This is the crux of the argument and can be viewed from both sides. I think a brand can choose who they make their products for. I also think that the customer, the paying customer, should be treated with the same amount of respect as anybody else. The way I view it, when a brand gets to such a threshold, it's almost like somebody becoming famous and forgetting about their roots, their origins, what made them so special in the first place. Referring back to the beginning of the talk when we looked at how advertising propped up these brands. How if it wasn't for the feats of the pioneers and the watches that they wore on the wrist, they would never become as popular as they are today. And this is how the watch atmosphere has changed so much. Many of us who respect certain brands now can't appreciate them as much because they make the weirdest decisions that affects everybody. Gone are the days of humility, of customers who want these objects because they have a passion for them and because they grew up appreciating the advertising and what made them so important. Now is a time for the clientele to be shortlisted so that they can get something that nobody else can. That makes them feel more important about themselves, makes them feel a part of this group. And it does, in some way, give off an impression that this product is better than everything else. Personally, I hate the pretense. I really do. I think it's so unnecessary. This is why I believe so many micro brands in this space are getting the respect they deserve, because they are starting from nothing. They don't have the history or the heritage, but what they do have is the ability to make changes, the ability to supply great service, to appreciate their customer base and to make them a part of the process. Now, yes, we could just narrow it down to a few places and talk about how stock is non-existent. Are we being turned off because of this lack of transparency? That many things are happening in the background, but we are not privy to any of the information. As enthusiasts, as paying customers, are we not entitled to this information? Don't know. It has to be said again that this is not the case with all watch brands. In fact, so many are doing better. It's because of what's going on in some sectors that many of these brands are improving the way they interact with their consumer base. They are seeing these opportunities to make their products better, to deliver us better services. What I find perplexing about this whole scenario is that people are willing to go through this selection process, to be treated this way, to not boycott the situation, but instead to fall in line. They are holding something that you want, so they are in control. I have this terrible suspicion that this is going to seep into so many other brands in the future. It's no longer about appreciation, about story. It's about prestige, status, and authority over your fellow man or woman. Not about adventure or passion or creating your own legacy and buying into something that makes you the hero of your own story. There is now a level of superficiality that comes with these products, and the entire industry knows it. What can be done? Nothing I say in this video is going to make a difference. All that can be said is that there are many makers out there that can do a much better job at treating you right, and that we're in the 21st century and that brands should be a lot more conscious about how they treat people. Unfortunately, the way of the world now is very different to how it was 50 years back. There's not much we can do to change it other than look for brands that truly appreciate their customers. I'd really like to know your thoughts around this and what you think the future of this space is going to be like. There's also this great divide now where people are seeing watches as asset classes. No longer are they seeing them as just great things to wear. They're more worried about that their money is safe in these products. I do fully understand the concerns, but once again, the buyer is completely different to how they used to be. And this could culminate in a massive shift where the prices of these watches disappears, because people simply cannot justify purchasing them. They are no longer fun to wear and enjoy because of this inherent value. So this has become a multi-layered argument, looking at the complexities of brands and how they treat people, as well as how advertising has pushed us in a different direction and how watches are seen no longer as objects, but as status symbols. One final thought exercise. If we could create a utopia, a place where we could enjoy all the watches that we like and had the opportunity to own them whenever we could, I think the way the market is seen now would change a lot. I don't believe that people would be going as mad as they are for watches at the moment. I don't think the prices of them would be so astronomically high. If everyone's happy and they have what they like, what are the odds that they're going to be pursuing it further? It's an interesting thing because you can view it in different ways. A brand being out of touch with its customers, but at the same time, they know that their product is going to sell regardless of what they do. So they do not need to cater to everyone's wishes. They instead make the rules and everybody has to follow. But I think a lot more can be said about a good brand that leaves you with a strong experience, with something that you will cherish, with a story unlike anybody else, where you're treated as a person and not just a number. The product you receive is earned, but not through compliance, rather through a genuine interaction where profiling is not factored in and where trust is at the center of it all. That is what good brands are about.